I had a very bad idea. What if I took Minecraft mobs and made them 10 times more horrifying? What I've created is literal nightmare fuel and will probably keep you up at night. I'm a 3D artist, and this is how I made scary Minecraft mobs so much worse. I decided that the first mob I wanted to do was a Minecraft Enderman. In my opinion, these are already one of the scariest mobs in the game, and I thought it would be really fun to try to make it even worse. The design of the Enderman obviously take inspiration from the Slenderman, so I decided to base my model off the Slenderman. I looked online for a Slenderman model that I could use as the base, and then altered it for my own purposes. Credit to GreatZina blocks for the base model. Once I had the model in Blender, the program that I used, I started altering the features to make it better. I started off by getting rid of the nose, flattening the ears, and making the eye holes bigger. I also adjusted the head to be bigger, but I kind of messed it up and had to do some corrections later. Once the model was done, I set up some temporary lights and began working on the materials. I wanted this Enderman to look like a cross between Slenderman, Enderman, and the symbiote Venom. After the materials were done, I added some glowing pink eyes and started working on the Enderman unhinged jaw thing. I did this by separating the head into two objects as well as removing it from the body entirely. Once I finished the jaw, I set up a quick rig for the model and set up the body so it would follow the skeleton. I purposely made the rig really janky and weird so that when it came time to pose the model, it would look really unhinged and unnatural. I gave the legs way too many bones so they looked really curvy and like a cartoon character, but then I gave the actual torso a single bone so he can only lean forward without actually bending over. Once the rig was complete, I did some scientific testing to, oh holy shit, okay, I think we're on the right track. This is looking really good so far. I started posing the Enderman, which actually didn't take too long. Because the rig was so janky and weird, when I moved the arm, the fingers started to look like dangling bits of grease or something. It was really a strange look, but I kind of liked it, so I decided to keep it in. Just for fun, I decided to add some particles using Blender's particle system, which is much better than any other particle system in any other software, I guarantee it. And after finalizing some lighting and background adjustments, I clicked render, and this was the final result. This looks really cool, but somehow the base model in the viewport is even more terrifying than the final render. The next mob that I decided to turn into a sleep paralysis demon was the Blaze from the Nether. Because I didn't have a reference model like the Slenderman for this one, I decided to make my own. Using a sea anemone, I swear I'm not doing this on purpose. A sea anemone, I'm like the fish from that movie. Using a sea anemone, a blobfish, and a rip-off Photoshop I found online, I created this, which was my reference image for the horrifying blaze I was about to create. I started by making the base model using a subdivided cube, then once that was complete, I started altering it by selecting random vertices and moving them ever so slightly. It was a pretty cool effect, but it wasn't quite enough, so I added a wave modifier, which makes the entire thing bubble. Once I got the result I was looking for, I added a couple of eyeballs and began working on the tentacles. On a normal blaze, there are 3 layers with 4 rods that circle each layer. I tried to replicate that by having 4 different layers of tentacles, each of varying size. Placing the ones at the top was kind of challenging because there wasn't a good spot to put them. I kind of put them just around the back of the head, but I needed at least one of them in the front, and it ended up looking like it was coming out of the creature's mouth, which wasn't intentional, but I decided to keep it. I began working on the materials, starting with the eyes. I actually spent a lot of time on these because I wasn't quite sure how I wanted them to look. I started off with this kind of like glass ball look, and then I had smaller balls within them. I came back to this several times because I did not know what to do. Eventually, I just moved on and started working on the body instead. I made it orange, obviously, and gave it a really scaly, slimy looking texture. I also gave it a bit of a warm glow, then basically just copied this material for the tentacles, but slightly darker. The next step was the most challenging part of the entire blaze, adding the fire. Fire is one of those effects that I don't use that often, and it's kind of complicated, so I actually mostly forgot how to do it. I went through several failed attempts where the fire just kind of put itself out, but eventually I got something working. Once I got a fire shape that looked decent, I started working on the fire materials. Somehow, the fire material was even harder than the shape, and it was so annoying to do that I actually just gave up and reused the material from an old project where I actually knew what I was doing. I had to adjust the brightness to get it to fit my scene better, but aside from that, this worked loads better than making a new material from scratch. Next, I decided to tweak the lighting. Instead of having a 3-point system like I usually do, I had one harsh key light coming from the side, illuminating it from the bottom. When you illuminate a model from the bottom, it gives it a very creepy look, because normally we associate light coming from the sky, like the sun. So when you light something from the bottom, like a flashlight under your chin, it makes the entire thing look much creepier, and I think it really gave me the desired effect. The last thing I did was add these shiny little black globs coming out of its mouth. Initially, these were supposed to be kind of like venom or blood or something. I don't even know what it was supposed to be. Just some random details to make it look a little bit more off-putting. And with those last little details done, it was time to click render. This was the final result. Not as creepy looking, but I still think it looks very cool, and the fire is especially nice. I wanted to do one more mob, but I wasn't sure which one to do. The Enderman is obviously purple, and the Blaze is obviously orange, which are both secondary colors. To keep the consistency, I decided I want the final mob to be green. I also wanted to be iconic for reasons that definitely had nothing to do with clickbait. With all that said, the final mob that I decided to horrify, not horrify as in scare the mob, horrify as in make horrifying. The final mob that I decided to horrify is the zombie horse. No, I'm just kidding. It's a creeper. Of course it's a creeper. What else would it be? It's literally in the thumbnail. This might sound really weird, but I decided to start off with the base model of a monkey. You don't really notice it, but in game, creepers actually have 4 feet, and monkeys walk on all 4 of their feet, so I thought it might be an interesting fit. I went on asset sharing websites looking for a high quality monkey model I could use, but then I got sidetracked looking at the laws and regulations for royalty-free licensing, and if I could actually use these models for YouTube video. I think I can. I'm pretty sure I can. It's kind of confusing, to be honest. Anyways, credit to Savageurus for the beautiful model. I'm gonna end up mutilating this thing, but I just want to say what a legend he is for making this amazing model free for anyone to use. But once I got the monkey in Blender, I started adjusting all the proportions to make it look better. More suited to my needs. That's a better way of putting it. I completely dismembered the head because I had an idea. I began to work on lighting and I rotated the camera so it looked more interesting. The model came with a normal map, which is basically a texture that has all the details of the skin, muscles, folds of the body, all that type of stuff, and it adds so much more detail to the model. This texture is made for the base monkey and not the cube face, but I kind of made it work, at least from the front. Then I added the creeper face. And oh my god, I got this beautiful editor view. I think this one's gonna be pretty good. I adjusted the creeper's texture to match the monkey skin a little bit more, and then I began working on the worst choice I've ever made in my life. I gave the creeper hair. This was a bad idea for a few reasons. The first thing, obviously, is that creepers should not have hair. Like, this on its own is enough to make this entire image disturbing. The second, and honestly bigger reason, is that doing hair is one of the most frustrating things you can possibly do in Blender. Maybe I'm just really bad at it. I've never done it that much, so I'm probably just missing experience, but oh my god, this was frustrating. This took so long. This took longer than both of the other models combined just for adding the hair. Eventually, though, I got something I was happy with, and the final touch was to add glowing red eyes as an homage to Revenge. I saved the file, pressed render, and this was the result. Please make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, and YouTube thinks you'll like this video on screen now, so please, click it.